Starship Test 5 was this morning, and it was impossible. The goals were impossible. The objectives were impossible. And yet the impossible has happened. In case you haven't caught it, it has. And so I'm going to get some conversations here about it. I'm being joined by Jan from Tesla Fix. I'm Brian.
Hello.
To Futuraza. he's doing a Brian impression. For those who...
Obviously, I'm Brian. What's up? How you doing, mate?
Who don't know. This morning, I set my alarm for 4:30. Which is something I do not care for. I wasn't even aware that there was a 4:30 in the morning, but I have discovered it, and it's a dark, dark place. I do not care for it. And of course, I watched it live on Everyday Astronaut because of the streamers. He's just a cool dude. I just like him. And of course, I posted, they caught it. They caught it. Yeah. And and then of course I reposted this one. This is the official one. I captioned it "The Moment of Impossibility," because if you look at that, what in the heck? It's coming in, and you're like, well, it's wobbling a bit. Nope, that's an intended dogleg to so that if there's a failure, it'll hit next to the pad instead of into the pad. Mm-hmm. This is fantastic stuff. This is changing everything. Jan, what is this changing? What actually happens now that's changed?
Payload, I would say, big time, because I mean, when I saw this was amazing. I've already, like we talked on my channel about this too. It's insane seeing this, because this opens up a huge variety of possibilities now, because if you look at the size comparison, this thing is as like it's a skyscraper that was catched here. That people, like, you cannot tell sometimes when you look at it in that way, because you don't have reference points inside of the frame. And if you really look at it, the Statue of Liberty is even smaller than this. The whole rocket, so not just the stage, but also the whole rocket. And Brian will pull up a size comparison here.
There you go.
So you see, well,
it's almost as big as the Space Needle, or as my friends in Germany call it, the Space Schneedel.
Exactly, that's what they call. Please don't Google Schneedel. Thank you very much. So people see this now and probably realize, wait a second, now we can shoot up stuff there pretty easily, and this opens up a lot of possibilities that weren't there before, like a moon base, for example. I would say that's a very far-stretched thing, but of course, payload from different companies. And now, since they are having this ready, kind of, and now they need to do more tests, they will like reproduce it, hopefully, and then we will see more and more companies sending up stuff. And
do you know what
the space? Yeah.
Do you know what the maximum size constraint was for the Hubble Space Telescope? It was whatever they could fit within the payload bay of the space shuttle. James Webb was similarly constrained by the maximum launch size available. Would they have liked to have built a larger space telescope capable of greater observation? I suspect so. But you also have but you also have a constrained budget. You can only spend so many dollars on a project. Well, if launching it just went from $1 billion down to $100 million, you've got an extra almost $1 billion you can spend on the actual telescope. So this will allow us to peer further into the early days of the universe than ever before. So hopefully,
So this is huge for science, also for different occasions. And something you've said, which I want you to repeat now, because on my channel you've talked about this, and I found this highly, highly interesting. Please go ahead and tell us the comparison of how many times could this fly until you would have a space station up in space from the space station we already have.
So if you look at the International Space Station, it took 20 years to assemble, and is quite big and expensive. And it took a long, long time to get it up there. But if you look at the weight of it, it's really not that much weight. Starship has a payload capacity in terms of weight that would allow you to get it up there in 2 launches. And two launches. I mean, you could do it in an afternoon. You could have it shipped in an afternoon. So it's insane.
Fast delivery then, the same day delivery.
Yeah, and you say, well, but you couldn't because it's too bulky. All the pieces wouldn't fit. Right, you'd use different pieces. Instead of having long, skinny tubes that were the shape of the space shuttle's cargo bay, you would have smaller, fatter tubes with multiple interior compartments. It would give you more flexibility in what you want to do. You could have a big open space that is full of the external solar panels and all that. You could do one load with a pair of tubes and a second load with a tube and all the solar panels. You could have all of it up there in just short order. And if you've got weight capacity to spare, you just put a bunch of other stuff inside of it that will later be either used or moved outside. It's this means that the possibility of space hotels is back on the books. You can do it again.
Jesus.
Yeah. Why not? You could have, and why not? I can think of 100 reasons why not, but they could still do it. Every building that exists in Dubai has a big why not asterisk next to it, but they've done it. So this could be tremendously huge. I did find another size comparison one. This is pretty interesting. This is including just more or less real rockets. You can see how out of date the design is on the at the time it was called the BFR. They've changed it to the Starship, but it is larger than the rocket that took astronauts to the moon. It is just the first stage is as big as the entire Falcon Heavy with fairing. It is significantly bigger than the space shuttle. And of course, this is a different kind of space Schneedle, but it is kind of the same principle going on there. What's your take on the second stage and how well it performed its duties over the following hour?
So you mean the one that was catched?
Nope, not the one that was caught. The other one, the second stage. The second stage is the top.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
The Starship itself and its much longer journey. What's your take?
Yeah, well, so I think while it obviously this thing is still needs to be sorted out to be like how do you catch that? That's the next thing. It was a controlled explosion, as far as I understood it, that they had to just...
I think it was a controlled explosion there at the very end, because what a show it was. Once again, with the flaps burning through a bit, but nowhere near as bad as last time. I was deeply concerned that it would not be in shape for a controlled landing, but it was. And not only did it land in a controlled manner, but it landed precisely where it was supposed to be. The ocean bobbin buoy out there was able to see exactly when it came in and capture the whole thing exactly as planned. Now, obviously, we're going to need to make it actually reusable. If you burn your limbs off in a single flight, you're not going back out for another flight right away.
Maybe in a few years when you recovered, but no.
Well, I'll just grow new arms because, I have a very powerful prayer circle who looks out for me. But there's going to be there's room left to improve. And I don't mean improve, I mean complete the dang job. Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, it's interesting because if you have, I mean, for space, for load, putting load into space right now, that's sufficient enough for now, even if you would lose the second stage. But after delivery, obviously, and that's very important here. But
you could fly it in a expendable configuration. There is an upcoming launch. I think it was scrubbed due to the hurricane, where they're going to be launching, I forget what, some very heavy payload, where Falcon Heavy will fly in a fully expendable configuration because they need all that extra delta to get it up there. And all three boosters will be intentionally lost. That's expensive, but it's also a great way to retire your older boosters anyway. These programs are going to be insane. My question for everybody watching would be, where did you watch this, and did you watch it live? Because there were a number of streams. SpaceX had their own stream, NASA Spaceflight, Everyday Astronaut, What About It? A lot of great channels were covering it in their own different great ways. Where did you watch it? So what do you think? When do you think it's flying next? Do you think they can get the re-engineering done in a matter of months? Are we talking 6 months?
Maybe this could happen, but we've seen that the I don't know if the reusability of this one, how much is still usable, because we've seen these flames coming out of the side, which needs to be fixed, obviously. But I think 6 months could be possible, because of course they want to get this thing off again as fast as possible.
Absolutely.
Because now they need to test it, and I think this is such a smart move of SpaceX to do, actually, to make it about sending stuff into space, and then this will stabilize the process, like we already seen. Then they have more and more, the percentages of success goes up and up, and at some point the risk is so low that you would say, okay, now it makes sense to send up there maybe 20 humans or something like that at the same time. But it needs to have a point to get to before we can do that. So that's important to note.
I had an opportunity to talk with Ellie in space recently. Real quick, guys, if you don't have if you haven't already, head on over to Tesla Fix. He does some great interviews. We have fun, and he's a great guy. I've hung out with him many times. I've stayed at his place, and he has stayed in my Airbnb in Michigan. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it was cool.
We did have a great time. There's videos about it. I
and about to be launched on my channel if I have the
oh my gosh,
those.
That's hilarious.
Right. Yeah, that's sad.
So I had a chance to talk with Ellie in space, and what I asked her was, would you fly? And she said, Falcon 9, 100% today I'd go. Starship, no. No. Let's get it a few dozen, a few hundred, a few thousand launches, and then we'll talk. And that is exactly what they did with the Falcon rockets, is they flew them on so many payload and cargo, on so many payload missions that a cargo mission was a no-brainer, and then so many cargo missions that a crewed mission was a no-brainer, and now they are even selling launch services to individuals. And it's through a third-party company. It's all still on the up and up, and they're not just going up for fun. They're going up there to do research that would otherwise require taxpayer dollars. And so, well, why are these billionaires shipping their money to space? My friend, that is not the payload. The payload, the money is spent right here on miners and refiners and engineers and delivery drivers. This is money going right back into the economy. And if someone else is paying for it, that's good. And I'm very tired of the argument that SpaceX only survives because of government money. Well, yes, because historically the only people who buy launch services are governments. But really, the agencies that require launches are only able to survive because of the discounts provided by SpaceX. If we're going to talk about how much money SpaceX gets, we also need to talk about how much money Boeing and United Launch Alliance don't get, because SpaceX charges 30 to 70% less for the same launch service. And I say the same, it's more reliable. It's more dependable. It's closer to on schedule. So it is, I just, I get frustrated by the people who irrationally hate SpaceX. But I get annoyed by people who irrationally hate the government. Because, the FAA's got it out for Elon. No, they got their launch permit. The FAA is underfunded, understaffed. They were not set up to handle this kind of launch cadence. And there are too many politicians who say, don't fund any federal agency, and this is a federal agency. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, sure. I think it's there's a discussion to be made if the efficiency of a private company and a government government body depends. It's not the same, because the
The
company
objectives
needs
are
to-
different.
yeah, exactly. The company needs to make money. It needs to be efficient, cost effective, and government bodies sometimes lack this because they need to also be careful with their money, obviously, but it's not the same. They are like in a different bubble, kind of in a safety bubble, more or less. If something fails, well, the government will step in again. So we also see that here that many government bodies are inefficient in comparison to the companies, the private companies. But
Yes.
on the other hand, they have different objectives, and sometimes companies misuse, of course, monopolies, like we see.
Yes.
So there's an argument to be made. We need government bodies for some things. That the social construct is still or has an integrity still. Because companies that just focus on making money on the expense of humans at some point, so there needs to be like a balance, kind of. But I see that for space, for this venture, I think it makes so much sense to be privatized in that sector. I would say because obviously it works.
It works.
That's good.
That's the bottom line. Well, if I was born rich and was a billionaire, I'd have gotten to space too. No, you wouldn't. When Elon launched SpaceX, he was not a billionaire. And Jeff Bezos did launch Blue Origin before SpaceX, and he was a billionaire. They had essentially unlimited funding, and the funding was so massive that the urgency was absent. And they have still not reached orbit. I'm excited to see them get to orbit. I'm excited to see that their rocket engines, recently used on a test launch, performed flawlessly. That's fantastic. But that doesn't mean that it's easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It remains rocket science, you guys. So what did we miss? What do we misunderstand? Leave it into the comments below and stay tuned and juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots in orbit.